What's up, YouTube? Tane the 2SS. Thank you for coming back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be notified of all future videos. Today's video, we're going to get into how to get a job in tech. It's what I currently do. I'm a senior software engineer. So today, I'm just going to teach you the steps so you can also be gainfully employed in the tech industry. Let's get into the video. So I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of backstory about my journey into tech. For years, I was working in like plants, factories, just jobs that I totally disliked. They were low paying. They had a ceiling. You weren't going to go very far. You know, it was just work that I didn't enjoy, work that made me unhappy. I didn't feel like I was providing any real benefit. I got no pleasure out of doing it, and I'm all about pursuing passion. I'm all about doing things that make you happy and that are meaningful to the world. That's my journey. That's what I like to do, and I just felt totally unfulfilled in the jobs that I had previously. And that's not to say that those jobs aren't important, right? Because people who work in automotive factories or whatever you do, that is meaningful to society. I just felt that what I was doing wasn't meaningful for myself and for my family and what I wanted to do with my life. So while I was working for a factory, I was able to make it into the office. I was kind of working the corporate side of the factory. And while I was doing that, I was around a lot of IT people, and I was having conversations with them, and they inspired me to move in that direction. Particularly, there was this one lady in IT, and she was telling me her backstory. I was telling her mine, and she was like, you know, you should totally look into doing web development. And I'm like, that's a little, at the time I thought web development wasn't real programming, right? When I thought programming, I thought of like C, like Java, like very low level, machine level, programming. I didn't think about web development. So it really didn't click at the time, but I started learning C#, I started learning Java, which by the way are like pretty difficult as your first programming languages. I don't recommend you go that route, but again, this is just my journey. So as I was doing that, she was still telling me about, web development. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm listening, but not listening at the same time. So finally, I had an idea one day about creating an app for the company. And I completed it. It took me about 2 months. I used completely free online resources from YouTube to learn how to build the app. That's why it took me like 2 months. It was super simple. Like there were just like 3 pages that you have to swipe through, and it documented the procedures that were going on the line. And like I said, it was super simple. It took me 2 months. The resources I used were found on YouTube. I didn't pay a cent for them. Ended up showing the director of technology, and I'm like, I thought this was going to be my like way of transitioning into tech. And he looked at it and he was like, oh, this is really cool. You did a great job with this. I'm going to follow up with you. And I never heard from him again. Like he completely ghosted me at that point, which is crazy because, you put in some work and you think it's going to be your big break and nothing comes of it. But that's life sometimes, right? So in 2016, the company ended up laying off I want to say like close to 60 to 70% of their workforce. And I remember the day vividly because they brought about 40 of us into the office at that time. And they just told us a story. They had this very stoic look on their face and just said that, unfortunately, we don't have the work. We're going to have to lay you guys off. And I remember people being very upset. I remember one guy in particular actually crying, but I felt like happy, which is weird because I felt it was more of a relief. Like, okay, now I can finally actually pursue what I want to pursue. I can actually do what I want to do in life. So I decided to go full-fledged into learning about web development. And one of the resources that I used to start with was just YouTube because it was free. And I found like I'm a very visual learner. So with a lot of YouTube videos, they'll show you'll actually build something, right? It's not just somebody talking to you like, this is a variable, this is a function. You're actually building something like a weather app or a Pomodoro clock or whatever it is. You're actually building something. You have something to show, it's not just lectures, right? So I was using, like I said, I was using YouTube, but then as I progressed a little bit with my skill level, I started using Treehouse, which was excellent for beginners. I think I'll leave all the links to the resources that I used in the description. But I started using Treehouse, and Treehouse is an excellent resource because it has a bunch of different videos that's all structured out in a particular like pre-planned learning process, right? So it walks you from like baby steps all the way through the journey. It's very simple, very easy to get started, and I definitely recommend Treehouse. But it is, at the time, it was like $25 a month, which is still pretty good for the value that it provides. But Treehouse is definitely one of the things that I use to progress when I first started out. There's also Code Academy, which is also completely free, and it's also like a self-guided process with their learning resource. That's also another excellent one. There are books that you can use. There's for a little bit more advanced courses, there's a website called Pluralsight. That's one of the things I kind of use now, as well as another one that is excellent, and it's called Udemy. Again, I'll leave the description to all of these resources, or the links to all of these resources in the description. Udemy is incredible. They'll have sales, so they'll have a video or course that's listed as like $200, but they'll say, for this week only, the course is $12.99. I probably have maybe 25 to 30 Udemy courses, and I don't think I've ever paid more than $12 for them, $13 for them. It's super excellent. Like it's you can learn so much from these courses, and there's one course in particular that I recommend almost any and everybody start with, and I'm gonna link that in the description as well. I think it's called Zero to Mastery. I believe the current one is Zero to Mastery Web Development in 2021. It's incredible because it has, not only do you have the coursework, and you're going to be building projects throughout the course that you can then show in a portfolio, right? You're going to be building a portfolio. You'll have something to show potential employers when it's time for you to actually get a job as a developer. But it also has a community. They have a, what's it called? Discord channel. Yeah, they have a Discord channel where you can talk to other students who are also learning about development, and you guys can kind of bounce questions and answers off of each other. They have job boards. It's just a whole community of different things and people that keep you accountable. And kind of help you learn and help you through the process. So that's a lot of value that you get for the $12 that you spent on the course. It's insanely incredible. This is what the people that I mentor to get into the tech industry, that's one of the courses that I always recommend is this Zero to Mastery web development course, because it's like, in my opinion, the best thing to start with to get you job ready in a short amount of time. So you might be asking yourself, why the tech industry? And the reason I recommend the tech industry, especially right now, is because it's one of the fields that are future proof, right? You are creating the future as a developer, as an engineer. You're kind of leading the way, whether that's, mobile apps, websites, no matter what it is, programming, robotics, like the tech industry is so future proof because it is the future. Like you're literally building the future. That's one of the reasons I recommend it. You don't want to be one of these workers who are going to be displaced by technology at the end of the day, right? And it happens very quickly. In the next 5 to 10 years, there are going to be a lot of jobs that's going to be replaced by techs, by robots, by automated processes. Machines work way faster than humans. Machines never call in. They may break down, but they are very efficient, right? So companies are going to be putting a lot more money towards investing in technology than they are in people, which is sad, but as humans, we have to adapt. We always have. And in order to keep up with life, you just can't be left behind. You're going to have to upgrade your skill. And getting into tech is one way to kind of future-proof your income in the foreseeable future. Another reason is money. The tech industry is one of the highest paying fields in the world, especially right now. Now it fluctuates a little bit depending on your location, but now that I won't say most, but a lot of companies have gone online, especially since COVID, there are a lot of 100% remote developer jobs where you will never see an office again. I've been working from home since March of 2020. And again, it's just not having that commute every day, not having to worry about the things you would normally have to worry about when you have to go into an office each day. Just being able to get out of bed and kind of work at your own pace, or set your own hours with some companies. You don't feel like somebody's just standing over watching you, and you have to get your job done. And if you don't, you're being chastised. It's basically, as long as you get your work done, when you're able to attend meetings, it's super laid back. Like there's nothing like it, right? And you really have to experience it to know the difference. And it's the job market right now for developers is just crazy. There's so many openings. There's expected to be close to 1 million openings for developers or engineers by next year. And these are positions that desperately need to be filled. And because they need to be filled, companies are paying a lot of money to find talent to fill these positions. And when I say a lot of money, I mean 6 figures and up, right? I would say I know people who make 300,000, right? And I know people who make 100. I know people who make 200,000. It really just depends on your skill level, like I said, your location, but it's a very, very high paying field right now. So as far as paths to actually learn these skills, there's the traditional route where you go to college, you get your degree, and you land a job, you do an internship. There's that traditional route. Companies are starting to do away with making degrees a requirement. I do not have a degree myself. Actually, at my company, most of the developers don't have a degree. And if they do have a degree, it's not in computer science. Development is a largely self-taught industry because you have to continue to learn, right? Technology is always evolving, it's always changing. So you have to continue to learn, right? Some of the things so you may go to college, you may be there for 4 years learning this technology, and you get out of school and your skills may be outdated, right? Depending on the technology stack that they're using. If you haven't used it, right, you don't know it. You'll have to get up to speed in what they're using. Again, going to college does teach you some fundamentals that you don't get as a self-taught developer, especially, or things that you don't get right away because you're just trying to get a job as fast as possible. So like data structures and algorithms and like big O notation and that sort of thing, where you're getting into performance of functions and whatnot. That stuff you may not gravitate to as a beginner, right? You want to kind of learn the meat and potatoes of what you need to know in order for you to get a job as fast as possible, right? So because of this, there's also been other schools that have opened up called Bootcamps, right? So they're like 8 to 12 week courses that are maybe like, I don't know, I'm seeing them from like $5,000 to $10,000, where they teach you the fundamental skills. You build projects, you'll have a portfolio, and by the end of it, you're job ready, right? They'll even have like a career fair at the end of that 12 weeks, where you're meeting potential employers. So those are two of them, right? There's the traditional route, there's the boot camp route, and then there's the self-taught route, right? Where you're just using online resources like Udemy or Pluralsight or Code Academy or Treehouse, books. You're using these things to learn at your own pace in order to get a position, right? So it really just depends on the route that you're most comfortable with. I was most comfortable going the self-taught route. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I knew that learning this material was worth it. So I didn't need to be invested, as far as like having a tuition or having to spend $10,000 and I need to do this course or I'm going to waste my money. It was like, no, this is what I want to do. I know it's going to be lucrative. And this is what I'm going to dedicate myself to. So I was able to do it. But again, self-taught may not be for everybody. You may want to go to a boot camp, or you may want to go to college. It all depends on you and the way that you learn your learning. I would say the number one thing to do once you build those skills and you're ready to start applying to places is apply, and then apply some more. It is very much a numbers game, right? You're going to have companies that will look at your current skill, especially when you're starting off, and you'll get rejected, right? You may get rejected before you even get an interview. You kind of just have to brush that off and continue to apply. You have to have resilience, right? You just don't stop because you've been rejected. Apply. You only need one company to say yes. And it sounds crazy, but that's literally one of the best ways to get hired is apply, and apply some more. Another way or path that you can take is to start with smaller companies, maybe a medium-sized company to a startup company, one that doesn't have much of a IT department maybe. My first tech job, I was the only developer, and it was a very easy position to get for me. It was literally, I had one interview that lasted, I want to say 3 minutes. It was literally like 3 minutes long. They gave me a take-home test, which consisted of replicating a website, just a page on a website. So it was very much like a process that took me an hour. So I submitted that. They called me back, asked if I could come in for another interview to meet with the the owner of the company. So I had another interview with the owner. And from there, they offered me the position. So it was a very quick process. And mind you, this was at a small company. Now, at larger companies, the hiring process is very tedious, or I should say can be tedious. I've had companies where I've gone through 4 or 5 rounds of interviews only to not get the job, right? Which sucks because you've devoted so much time and energy into, getting the position or preparing to get the position. And then at the end of it, they just tell you that they want someone with more experience or whatever the reason may be, right? You're not the one who's chosen. Again, but this is where resilience comes in. You just have to keep at it, keep applying until you can land a position. Another thing that you want to do before I go on to the next topic, the thing about small or medium-sized companies where you're the only developer, in the long run, that may hinder your skill level, because technically at most companies or most large companies, you're not going to be the only developer. You're going to have a team, right? You're going to have a team of developers. You're going to have a team of designers. You're going to have like a project manager. You're going to have people that you can ask questions to and learn from. When you're the only developer on a team, the company looks at you to have all of the answers when it comes to your specialty, right? Like, you're the developer. We want this done, and we want it done by, this amount of time. Like, it's up to you to execute, and you may not know what the heck you're doing, especially when you're starting out. So that's one thing that you might have to keep in mind if you do take one of these jobs at a smaller company where you are the only developer. Is it's very beneficial, especially early in your career, to be around other developers where you can, especially when you run into problems, right? Like, hey, I'm unable to figure this out. I have a bug here. These are the steps I tried. Have you run into this issue before? And that developer may have run into the issue and will give you the information to fix it in 1 minute, right? But if you have to do it on your own, that thing that he told you that will only took him, 1 minute, will take you 1 minute because you got the information from him. If you have to figure that out on your own, starting out, it may take you 2 days, right? So there's this efficiency and this knowledge transfer that happens when you work with other developers that you don't get when you work as a sole developer on your team. So that's one of the things you want to keep in mind as you go through this process. Another thing to consider with the smaller companies is they aren't going to pay you what a larger company would pay. And that's to be expected. Just as a bit of transparency, I think my first developer job with the small company, I was making like $45,000 a year, which I was okay with at the time because, number one, it gave me experience, right? It's like one of those things where you just have to get your foot in the door in order for other doors to open for you. So just getting that first job, once you get that first job, just things just starts to open up for you in an incredible way, right? But at the same time, if you started at the bigger company, you may start out making, I've seen it, $120,000 a year, right? Starting, right? That's not having 4 or 5 years experience. That's your first job. You're making 100,000. It happens. It can happen. But it's all on the path that you take. So now let's talk a little bit about ways to find job openings. One of the big, an incredible resource is Twitter. There's a very large dev community on Twitter. And it can be toxic at times, but it's very invaluable. Like you have a lot of devs, you have a lot of like hiring managers, you have a lot of directors of technology, like a lot of these people that you'll be interacting with. Like I follow so many people, so many developers on Twitter. And actually, when I was looking for my last job, all I did was send out a tweet asking if if anybody was looking for a developer. I put a link to my portfolio, and I listed some of the skills that I know, and it was retweeted, and I want to say retweeted like 300 times, and I had a lot of companies reach out to me just from that tweet. Actually, the job that I ended up taking at the time, I got just based on that tweet alone, right? And for that job, it was insane because it was a contracting job, and the company was located in France, and they just needed help in building out this application that they were working on. So again, like just get a Twitter account, follow a bunch of developers, and if you need a job or you're looking for openings, they have just a ton of developers, ton of resources to use to help you get a job. Another one is LinkedIn. Make sure you have a LinkedIn profile that's updated, that lists your skills, that shows that you're available, currently looking for work, and recruiters will reach out to you. I get maybe 10 or 15 emails per day from recruiters asking if I'm currently looking for a job. It's a very valuable tool, especially starting out, right? You for recruiters to come to you instead of you, or companies to come to you instead of you going to them, that goes a long way. Another big one is once you start applying for jobs, you're going to see skills that companies are searching for, and that may dissuade you from applying, right? Because you may not know that skill, or you may not have that skill at the time, right? Don't let this discourage you from applying. Actually, you want to apply for some of these jobs where these skills are required, because you're able to learn these things, right? Once you get on the job, there's a ton of things that you're not going to know. Some companies do things differently than other companies, right? So there's always going to be things that you're going to pick up as you go in your career. So just because a job description may say that you need to know TypeScript in order to apply, don't not apply because you don't know TypeScript, right? Just apply, get the job. Once you get the job, you will learn TypeScript, right? You will learn these skills that you need to have to be successful, in these positions. Another big one is prepare for interviews. Interview preparation is super, super important. Don't just go into the interviews and think you're going to wing it, because chances are they're going to throw you some curveballs, and you're not going to be prepared, and you're going to, just not show yourself in the best light. So prepare, even the fundamentals, right? What is HTML? What is CSS? What is JavaScript? Like the fundamentals of web development. Just be, and if you come across a question, if an interviewer asks you a question that you don't know, don't just come out and say you don't know it, right? Kind of talk through it. They want to see how you solve problems. And even if you have no clue what the answer is, talking through your process or your thought process goes a long way. I had a interview a while back, maybe a couple years ago, where it was a peer, if I can talk correctly, a pair programming interview with another candidate. And they didn't care about completing the project that we had to build, right? I think it was like a menu app. And I think we had like 1 hour to complete it. They didn't care how far we got in the process in terms of building the app. What they wanted to know was or what they wanted to see was how we communicated, right? Soft skills. They wanted to know how we worked as a team in order to try to solve the problem. And just by talking through what we were doing or what we were trying to do was like 90% of the interview. Like that's exactly what they wanted to see. Of course, they want you to have skill, like basic skill, right? But being able to talk through what you're trying to solve goes a long way. And a lot of these interviewers they're developers themselves, right? So they've been there, they know that, and they'll kind of work with you. But there's also the other side of it, and companies I think this is sort of dying out, but there was this process called whiteboarding, and I'm sure it's still used at like Google or Facebook, or where you're actually going up to a whiteboard and trying to solve, or come up with an algorithm in front of maybe 4 or 5 people, and it's just you and your marker, and you're trying to, come up with an algorithm to solve a problem. A lot of the community hates these things, right? Because it's unnatural. This is not something you're actually doing on the job, right? You're not gonna be at a whiteboard solving an algorithm at 9 a.m. It's just not realistic. And I see a lot of companies moving away from that. I've actually never had an interview where I had to do whiteboarding, thankfully, because it's just super unnatural. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people fail them. A lot of great developers fail whiteboarding tests because it's just so unnatural, right? It's just like, what are we doing? Like, just give me something else. So what a lot of companies do now, they'll give you take-home assignments where it's, and I've had a number of these where it's just build a calculator app, or like I said, build a restaurant menu, or build a weather app that shows the next 5 days of weather. Little things like that. They'll tell you not to spend more than like 2 or 3 hours doing it. But it's a much more comfortable, much more natural process than standing up at a whiteboard trying to come up with an algorithm to solve a problem. But again, some people love it, most people hate it, but the industry is kind of shying away from those now, starting to anyway. And just like that, this video is done. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be notified of all future videos. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out.